We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
The Dialogue, the community voice of Southern California's young professional network. Relevant discussions about the thoughts, concerns, opportunities, and challenges faced by today's generational leaders. Real talk, real people. This is The Dialogue. The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles on LA Talk Live and streaming live at www.latalklive.com.
Happy Halloween, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Dialogue. Real talk, real people. I'm your host, Starlett Quarles, and we're on live at latalklive.com and streaming live at latalklive.com, as well as 1690 AM, the one in Omaha, Nebraska. As always, The Dialogue is the voice of our generation. So thank you so much for joining us here every Wednesday from 5 to 6, where we like to discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. Again, we're continuing our conversation all month long on Let's Talk About Politics. Last week, we discussed mobilizing the formerly incarcerated and young adults to take action. Our guests included Ms. Jackie DuPont Walker of the AME Social Action Commission, Erica Melbourne with Project 180, and our guest who is joining us here again tonight, Mr. Derek Steele of the Social Justice Learning Institute. So if you missed our conversation on mobilizing the formerly incarcerated to take action, as well as registering them, please, as well as young adults, please tune in to thedialoguela.com, visit our website, thedialoguela.com, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thedialoguela. Today we are continuing our conversation on political accountability, on politics, and we are talking about political accountability. Our guests today include, like I said, Derek Steele, who is a member of the Democratic Party, Tony Wafford, who's sitting next to me from the Independent Party. He's returning with us today. You might remember Tony earlier on in the month we talked about blacks not voting for Obama. And also Shirley Husar, who was supposed to join us on that show, but she couldn't make it, but she's back here today.
Woo, traffic was a killer last time.
And she is representing the Black Republican Party, Yay. And they are here today to talk about political accountability. So we want to hear from you. 323-247-7443, 323-247-7443. Now, with the upcoming presidential election now coming up on, Tuesday, November 6th, you guys are all going to get out and vote, I'm assuming, absolutely. What type of political return do you want on your what type of return do you want on your political investment in the candidates that you are voting for on November 6th? After November 6th, how are you going to hold them accountable to what they said on their agendas and in their platforms and in their speeches and in their stomps and walks on the street? How are you going to hold them accountable? And how do we as a community continue to hold them accountable, especially here locally in Los Angeles? So we're going to talk about that today. And don't forget to join us on Tuesday, November 6th for our all-day election coverage. LA, get out and vote. Right here on latalklive.com. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about political accountability. Woohoo! With our guests, we have everyone representing.
Come on, y'all.
We got three black
folks.
All
you GOP in the house.
That's the Republican. Now. That's the Republican.
Yes.
So we got we got three voices here, all talking about political accountability and the black agenda. Is there one? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Are you voting on Tuesday, November 6, 2012? I know I am. Hi, this is Nicordelai Corte, host of People Are Talking, right here on latalklive.com, encouraging all of our listeners and viewers to get out and vote on Election Day. This is the most important election in our American history because there's so much at stake. We need everyone in LA to register and have a voice on November 6th, Election Day. The state of California has over 6 million people that are eligible but not registered to vote, and about half of those folks live right here in LA County. If you haven't yet registered, don't worry. You have until midnight, October 22nd, and you can now even register online. So if you have a signature file online with the DMV or a state ID number, driver's license number, whatever it is, you can now register to vote at registertovote.ca.gov. And be sure to tune in on Tuesday, November 6th for LA Get Out and Vote. We'll be broadcasting live Election Day coverage from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all day right here on LA Talk Live, where we are more than just talk. Now get out there and make a change.
Hi, I'm actor Keith David, and I'm joining the Social Action Commission along with the AME Church, AAMLC, and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority in encouraging young adults 18 to 29 and the formerly incarcerated from the states of California and Nebraska to register to vote. With the voter registration deadline of October 22nd quickly approaching, we wanted to encourage these two groups to take action and help make a difference in the 2012 voter turnout. Operation EMR is a nonpartisan joint effort of civic engagement created to educate, mobilize, and register every eligible voter, including young adults 18 to 29 and the formerly incarcerated citizens of the states of California and Nebraska. To learn more about Operation EMR, visit www.ame-sac.com. To register to vote online by midnight October 22nd, please visit www.ame-sac.com.
The dialogue.
The dialogue.
The dialogue.
The Dialogue, the community voice of Southern California's young professional network. Relevant discussions about the thoughts, concerns, opportunities, and challenges faced by today's generational leaders. Real talk, real people. This is The Dialogue. The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles on LA Talk Live and streaming live at www.latalklive.com.
Welcome back to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. We're on live at latalklive.com. And today we are talking about political accountability with our esteemed panel today. Tony Wafford, who is representing the Independent Party. Well, not representing, but he's a member of the Independent Party. Shirley Husar, our Black Republican. And Derek Steele, who is a Democrat. And they're all
Black Democrat.
the Black
I
Democrat.
appreciate that. All right. Am I Black, African American, colored, Negro? Which one am I today? I'm
all that.
I want to be green. I want to get paid.
You all that.
I
You
want to be
all
Indian
that.
so I can get a check. The Indians get a check. If I can prove the Indian in us, I get that check.
We know you, Blackfoot. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about political accountability. But before we do that, unfortunately, we had this crisis on the East Coast with the Hurricane Sandy. And so I just want to get you guys' opinion on how you think Obama is responding to this natural disaster.
Well, I like to first say, I'd like to send out love to the families who are actually dealing with that issue. There's no politics in that, really. We're just hoping that everybody is safe and sound. I know there were some folks who lost lives, and we want to make sure that we continue to pray for the families and the people who are there.
Absolutely. So prayers go out to the people on the East Coast in New York and New Jersey and Atlantic City.
Indeed.
Our prayers are with you here on the West Coast. But what do you think? How is President Obama responding?
He's responding in the way that a president should respond.
Okay.
There's no doubt about that. Like he immediately got to it. I saw I was reading an article earlier today where the president let the governors know, if you're catching red tape anywhere, you call me in my office.
Okay.
You know
All
what I
right.
mean?
Absolutely.
That's huge. You know, that's doesn't have anything to do with party lines, in my opinion. I think as a president, that's what a president is supposed to do when something like that is going down.
Okay, Shirley.
You know, I definitely would say a prayer out there. There's some great people out there who are engaged in this country, and they were politically active. Unfortunately, a lot of families, a lot of lives have been lost. A lot of people are discomfort right now. So we definitely want to say a prayer out there in Jesus' name that God brings everything together. You know, we're Americans, number one.
Okay.
Before we're party lines, we're Americans. And it's wonderful to see that, you know, parties can work together. We have a governor in New Jersey who's a Republican governor. Chris Christie has been on it. He has put down the fact of this is not about politics. It's about Obama and Chris Christie and all the governors that are involved.
Are you saying Chris Crispy?
I'm sorry.
He ain't black.
I know, but he sounds crispy. Well, you know, he's an Italian man, big full-figured man, lots of pasta, a lot of personality.
But Chris Christie.
Chris Christie,
Okay.
sorry, thank you, Chris Christie, is working with the president. Look, it's not about the president here. It's about all governments working together, all legislation working together, from local, from state to federal. And that is what is important. And that's what makes American great.
Okay. All right, Tony.
Again, like everyone else, my prayers and thoughts go out to those who are suffering. But I really think even more so than that, it's interesting that we having this conversation. And the only reason we're really having this conversation because we had a buffoon in the White House before when Katrina hit, and now we're all of a sudden shocked that a president does what a president should do. Only probably because we hadn't seen that before.
We're not talking about this because of the last administration. We're talking about this because people's lives have died right now.
I didn't talk when you was talking.
I know, that's too bad. That's why you came after
again,
me.
what we're saying is we had an absolute buffoon in the White House.
Okay.
So now we see a person doing what a person should have done, and it's interesting how we have these dialogues when the president doing what actually the president should be doing.
Now, is it, you think
and the only reason it's a conversation because we had a madman in the White House first time who didn't know what to do but look out the window of Air Force One.
So with the election coming up on Tuesday, November 6th, is this going to help or hurt Obama?
Well, I think let's talk specifically about the election itself.
Okay.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens because we're dealing with floods in those particular areas, right? And not only just those, but even the places that got hit with snow, right? You're talking about people getting to the polls. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
That's a good point.
Because to see what the results are going to be, because you know, coming out, there was a really big push from the Democratic side of things to get people to go and vote early. Right. Well, actually, on both sides of the aisle, it was really about getting out and vote early. But Obama was already, as of the last time I checked, was like earlier at the beginning of the week. He was like up 2-1 on early voters in Ohio. And I don't know what the numbers were exactly, but you know, Obama was looking like he was doing pretty good, especially in the African American community. But the results are going to be pretty interesting to see what happens because getting to the polls is going to be tough, especially in New York.
You guys gonna stuff the polls? I'm just messing with you.
At least you know this room is kind of slanted. At least you know you're on your own.
I'm just messing with you, Shirley. No, but really, what do you think? Is this going to help or hurt your candidate? I mean, your candidate's a little bit hot water today with, you know, the ads that he's playing in Ohio, and him and Paul Ryan are out collecting food. So how is the Sandy disaster going to impact your candidate?
Number one, we're not stuffing polls. That's something you guys do through Acorn and everything else. Number two, as far as my candidate, he is up in Ohio and he's doing well overall. I think you guys are nervous and worried because you're knowing that our people are not coming out because they don't support this administration as a national as a whole. Unfortunately, Sandy it has occurred and it has affected that part of the region of the country, but we still have other people on our side. I mean, we're cooking out here, so we're not affected by it as much as they are. And the votes still go on. No matter what the weather is, voting still takes place. So absolutely, I think Romney's doing a great job. I think he's out there getting his opinion. This is the difference between apples and oranges, people. This is not about personality traits, if you like, or the past administration. Everybody likes to relate to the past. The past does not move us forward. I'm a forward-thinking person, and the only way you're gonna move forward is if you look at the facts. And under this administration, it has failed us financially, and we need to go with someone that's going to talk about the economy and jobs.
Why are your face doing that?
I just think it's always interesting when people say, "Don't look back, don't look back, don't look back, don't look back." And you know, Malcolm said it best. that of all our studies, history is most prepared to reward all research. If you know the beginning well, the end won't surprise you. So I think it's important that we always look back to understand where we're going forward. And it's really interesting, especially when we talk about black people and looking back and not looking back to slavery and things of that nature. But I defy you to tell a Jew not to look back and look at his history and what happened to them as a people. That will never happen.
Absolutely.
You'll only tell black people to do that.
Absolutely, you're
so I just
absolutely
think it's interesting when we suffer historical amnesia, but when the white folk jump up.
Okay, and related to politics, though. Okay, let's talk about the facts of where we are now, where we were in the future. Right now, we need to move forward. People are still homeless, still jobless. The economy, the numbers are down. We have a higher rate of people on welfare and unemployment and food stamps. So if you want to talk about looking back, let's talk about now. I prefer to talk about now because I live in the now. I respect the past for what it is, but I live in the now.
Okay, so let's talk about the upcoming election. You know, like I said, candidates are out, seeking their votes. So our conversation tonight is about political accountability. So Tony, starting with you, talk about the importance of holding our politicians accountable.
Well, I think it's key. I think it's definitely key. I think, if anything, I'm disappointed in the fact that we always talk about holding our politicians accountable. But this is probably the first time in history that black people went out in the numbers that they went out to support our dear brother Barack. But one of the biggest problems that Tavis and Cornell are catching hell about today is holding them accountable.
Right.
So it's you can't have it both ways.
Okay.
And when you get 90+% of a group's vote, then you owe them something.
Okay.
That's just the way politics works.
Okay. All right, Derek.
Well, the question is, what do we do to hold them accountable, or what are we doing to hold them accountable?
Or just the importance of it. The importance of our vote. Our vote is. At the end of the day, we're paying their salaries. So how do we hold the politicians accountable and talk about the importance of it?
It is important to hold them accountable, right? Because that is the nature of who we are who we're supposed to be as Americans, right? That's the Constitution, that it gives us that right to actually do that. We are the largest check and balance in the whole system, and if we're not doing our part, then those who have the seats actually go and do, and they have their own agendas, as we can see has happened year after year after year, election after election after election.
Okay.
I think it's really interesting to see in my generation kind of start to step up and at least start having conversations and start asking questions about what's really happening and what we actually can do to actually change these things. I'm one of those people that are always pushing for us to actually be more civically engaged, not only just in politics, but actually just on the ground and some of the things that are happening in our own communities. But they have the people who have those seats of power they need to be helping us move the agenda forward, but we have to push the agenda and say what the agenda is, right?
Excellent. Shirley, you're very active in the Republican Party. How do you personally hold the candidates in your party accountable to their platforms?
Well, when we talk about urban community and our own culture of people, I'm a native of Los Angeles, born and raised here. My parents had a daycare center that was called Town College on 39th and Vermont, for those who have been here as long as I have. And I saw two wonderful entrepreneurial Southern parents who raised me in this community. I've been a Republican all my life.
Your parents were Republicans?
My father was a Democrat. My mother is a Republican.
Okay.
But he was a conservative Democrat.
Okay.
So when we talk about parties and we talk about the titles, the understanding the terminology has changed. As far as what Democrats were in the 60s and the 50s and what Republicans were then versus what they're on now. So in saying that, when you've lived here all your life, 20, 30, 40 years or whatever, you identify the urban communities and its growth and its failure. When we look at the Los Angeles communities and we think about Malton Square, we think about Crenshaw, we think about Slauson, we think about certain parts of East LA and West LA, we see that those communities are ran by administrations that are failing the community. We talk about Atlanta, we talk about New York, we talk about Detroit. These are urban black communities, black people who have concerns in wanting better schools.
you saying that
stores.
they failed our community? You saying that we didn't hold them accountable?
I'm saying that the Democrat administrations that dominate overall have failed. Democrats have failed African Americans throughout decades.
So, for instance, if the Crenshaw area was ran by a Republican, what would it look like? What do you think it would look like today?
Well, I think it would be another story because you have to think about what the platform is for the party lines. When you think about the Democratic Party, their party is definitely about expanded programs and trickle-down factors. When we talk about the Republican Party, we're talking about a party that's about entrepreneurship, jobs, and people hiring jobs, and people engaged in bringing change in the community and being respected and listened to. I don't think Democrats, especially in this area, they don't give a crap about the community. It's a reflection of the poor leadership in this area. And I've lived here all my life. Democrats are losers, and they have failed these communities. We are failing as African American people. Looking at the platform of programs and expanded programs is a clear example of that.
Tony.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
You got to. I didn't say Tony.
That was so wild. I couldn't even. I don't even know how to respond to that. All I can say is
Now, do you think that we haven't held our black politicians accountable enough in South LA?
I don't think that. I think first of all, I think that we all are accountable. We all are responsible. Not just politicians. We all are responsible. Mm-hmm. And I think it's irresponsible to think that one or two people or the politicians or we don't hold the preachers responsible. You give him 10% of your money every Sunday and he gonna pray. Come on. I think that's ridiculous. I think that racism plays a heavy role. We don't want to talk about that. And again, and it's interesting how people always talk about lifting yourself up, pulling yourself up, and all that's good. I live a good life. I got money. I live good. But as long as other black people suffering, then it's a problem for me.
Okay,
it's not just about me. It's not just about pulling myself up. And we always talk about pull yourself up.
But aren't you supposed to vote
like
in your own
that
self-interest?
rising tide lifts all boats. What? That's only good if you got a boat. Everybody ain't got a boat.
Aren't you
Some
supposed
people
to?
got a hole in the boat.
Okay. So does the black community get a return on their political investment like other communities like Santa Monica, Pasadena?
Black elected officials don't get a return on it.
He's going through rhetoric. Let's cut to the chase.
Black officials not like don't Santa get a return on their investment.
What do you mean black officials don't get a return?
We're talking about what in the Congress? What are we? 7% of the Congress? Let's be real. White folks.
And
white folks running. White folks running. Racist, insane white folks and Negroes like this one sitting next to me. That's just the harsh reality.
Let me get Derek connected
from the real world.
Let me get Derek.
In generalities.
Let me get Derek.
Let's talk about specifics. Okay. Power concedes nothing without a demand.
Never has, never will.
Right. And I'll speak specifically to Inglewood, California. Inglewood gets neglected in a lot of different ways, and it has had a lot of people who, not only just Democrats and Republicans who have come and who have raped and pillaged the city.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, now what Republicans have raped and pillaged Inglewood? I would love to know who they are since you include them.
Let me finish.
Who are they?
So, but the problem is when you go to a city council meeting, there's only like 12 people in the city council meeting.
That are all city council that are all Democrats.
Hold on.
Don't blame the Republicans for your own failure.
Listen to the point I'm making.
Okay.
What is the point?
The point is that there's only 12 citizens who are sitting in the city council meeting. Power concedes nothing without a demand. If there's no demand from the community, then nothing's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And people are going to continue to go ahead and do what they do.
So you would agree it's accountability on both parts, the people as well as the administration.
Yes,
the administration that is all ran by Democrats.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's Democrats.
You
want to talk about? Wait. If we want to go there, what about
urban communities?
Well, what about what happened when George Bush was president? How do you talk about what happened with George?
About federal, I'm talking about local government. Stay focused. Stay focused, my brother. I'm
just asking a question.
Okay, all right, Shirley.
City council to the president.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I'm
Shirley, let him make his point. Go ahead.
The point I'm trying to say. My point was that if there's no demand, then power is going to do whatever it does. It doesn't matter what level of government we're talking about.
And I agree with you.
Okay, so let's bring it back home and let's talk about local politics, specifically here in South LA. And we all know that there is beef between some of our local council people. Mm-hmm. We don't have to name names. We know that they have personal issues that are impacting us as their constituents.
Right.
So in terms of political beefs, how do we overcome their petty issues? What is the cost to us in terms of our council people not getting along personally and not being able to come collectively for the benefit of the black community? Tony.
I think we just have to sit down, and I think it's important to talk to everybody. I think that.
I mean, we're talking about their personal
I know,
beef.
but
Okay.
I work with all of them.
Okay.
I know who don't like who, and I know who I
Is
can.
it petty? Does it have anything
Well,
to do with us?
I don't know. I don't know all of the history.
Okay.
In terms, I know what we
But what
we
does
all
that history got to do with
basically-
us? We're paying them to do something for
I'm
us.
going to get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is that I realize I can't invite this one to that one and this one to that one. What I do know is that when I'll meet with them individually and say, this is what I'm doing.
Okay.
And I'm working with this one, and this one. And I hope you don't have a problem with that, because what I'm trying to do is for the overall good of the community.
Okay.
And 100% of the time, they've conceded. I just know I can't make, but ours is no different than anybody else. You got white folks, politicians that don't like each other, that don't
I
get
know
along.
Sherman and Berman. You see them
that's,
squabbing on
that's,
TV?
That's nothing
That is
new.
hilarious.
I think where we hurt ourselves is we seem to always talk about ourselves in a pathological way, as if we the only one doing something that everybody else ain't doing, and we don't have it, and we have special issues.
But me personally,
that
I
other
don't
people
care about
don't
everybody
have.
else. I'm talking about what we need to do.
I know, but we
got beef,
But
and that
first
beef
we
is
have to quit
impacting our
talking about it
development.
in a pathological way, as if we the only ones got issues and concern. I think, again, for me, I talk to them and say, look, this is what I'm doing. Like when I work in HIV, I know who don't like who, but I say, hey, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I want you to come. Can you come? I'm inviting this one, this, and this one. They come at this time. You leave if you feel uncomfortable. I ain't got no problem with that.
Okay. All right. So, Shirley.
Well, of course, I think the brother is just totally wrong. When it comes to the bottom line, yes, they're petty, they're low lives, they're very selfish. They're not focused on the community for what they've been hired. Look, council people, assemblymen, senators, congressmen, these are jobs. These are jobs, and I'm going to go back to what this brother said earlier, which is so true. If they're not doing their job, and if we're not
some
doing our
bipartisan
job,
support.
well, no, this
That's
is
cool.
we're all
Because on the ground, we're all Americans, so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't
you know,
matter,
so.
but we have to
Go
work
ahead.
together.
Go ahead.
You know,
Indeed,
but if
indeed.
we look at the administration on a whole, from every level, when they're not doing their job, they need to be fired. This brother's wrong. He's friends with them. He says he knows them all. So he's got some kind of partisan with them. I'm going to tell you the real truth. The truth is these people have been in office too long. You're talking about 20 to 30 to 40 years. Half of them have 1 foot in the ground and 1 foot on the earth. And they're in between 70 or 80 years old running your communities, not really even engaging your communities with a mad civil rights energy that portrays into the community that is failing us. We need jobs. We need economic growth in our communities. We need to own our own properties. These are things that are going on. But yes, it is petty. They're selfish. And they're going to continue to just run agendas on the platform and never vote them through so they can keep their jobs, so they can act like they're doing something.
Derek.
But they're not doing nothing. They leaving you broke and your communities are toe up because it's broke Democrats with no brain and half dead and 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot in the grave. Vote them out. That's what you do. You take an incumbent and you vote them out. Old crazy Democrats, young crazy Democrats. I salute the independents and the libertarians and the Ron Paul people and the Republicans. Power to my people.
Derek.
I mean, I was all with her until she went all black Republican on me.
What else am I?
I know. I just saying.
You don't
No,
wanna
no.
be there.
Honestly,
You're almost
honestly,
there.
I
You're almost there.
No.
Yes, you do.
It's my thing is that aside from trying to make it a partisan thing of who's doing the most bad stuff, you know what I mean?
Right.
The bottom line is politicians across the board. I mean, I'll go federal on you just to let you know where I'm going. John McCain is old as heck too, right? So there's a lot of
We're talking about
across the
black
board.
communities and urban
Yeah,
communities.
I feel you.
Let's
what
go
you
back
said,
to
but the bottom line
agenda
is
of this
Wait,
show.
let him, Shirley, let him talk. Let him
I mean,
talk.
he's gonna have
what
to-
the point
let
is,
him talk, let him talk.
what I'm saying is I agree with you. I agree with you to the point until you get partisan on me about it. You know what I mean? Like, of course, yes, we have the power. We have the ultimate power to say who's doing what and why and when they're going to do it.
But you just
because
said
we
there
can
were-
vote them.
But you just said there were 12 people that showed up at that city council
Right.
meeting, and you said that the community
So-
people failed by not being engaged.
Exactly.
In there.
So what I'm
and
saying
they failed
is-
because they have an administration that obviously that don't connect to the people.
Okay,
Because
Shirley,
No.
Shirley,
That's
let him
not
respond.
why.
Let him
That's
respond.
not why. It's because the people have found other things that keep them from being engaged.
On top
right now,
of that.
Wait, wait,
Exactly.
wait,
no,
Shirley,
it's
wait,
not on
Shirley.
top of it.
It's not
It's not on top
priority.
of
It's not
it.
priority for
Okay,
them.
wait, wait, Shirley, wait,
it's
hold
not,
on.
It's not. It has nothing. I wouldn't put it on the politicians not being, because there are politicians who actually on my city council who actually do work to engage the people. The people don't show up
Okay.
for whatever reason,
I agree.
right? The
All right.
people
I agree
and they
with
have
that.
the right to do so,
Okay.
right? Because we're all Americans. We're free. We can do
Okay.
whatever we want to do. A lot of us in my community don't have time to, right? So the point I'm trying to say is we need to work together to try to find out how on the community, as people who are in the community working and think that civic engagement is important, we have to work together to try to get them engaged.
Okay,
right?
And I think you should vote them
all.
all out because they're no good.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I'm going to go that far because I'm older than you, and I lived in L.A. long enough to see that they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything for my people, and I'm done.
I'm done. Stop talking. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this spirited conversation. What are you doing? We'll be right back. Talk about political accountability with our hilarious panel here, actually. Right here on the Dialogue. Real Talk, Real People. I'm your host, Starlett Quarles. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
This is an internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Interested in advertising your business, product, or service here on the Dialogue? Call 323-547-7748. The Dialogue will help you promote your business, increase your traffic, and bring in new clients through innovative and creative marketing packages, including affordable radio ad campaigns for small businesses. Find out more. Call 323-547-7748. That's 323-547-7748. Or go to www.thedialoguela.com. And now, back to The Dialogue. The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles. Real talk, real people.
Welcome back to the Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. I'm your host, Starlett Quarles, and we're on live at latalklive.com, and we are talking about political accountability with Mr. Derek Steele, our Democrat. We have Shirley Husar, our Republican, and Mr. Tony Wafford, our Independent, here talking about political accountability. Now, my engineer, who I absolutely adore, Richard, has been so quiet over there. Richard, I know you have been you shaking your head. Why are you putting the tape on your mouth? I know you want to say something. Richard, I know you want to say something. We're going to get Richard in on this. Before I get off the air, I got to hear what Richard has to say. But before we get into our conversation about, getting the next generation more politically and civically engaged, when we bring it back to the conversation about our black community and our black politicians, do we as people, treat our black politicians as celebrities more so than employees of the people?
Oh, I say yes. I mean, when we think about the city of Los Angeles, they treat themselves as celebrities, but they've been in office for so long, it becomes like we need to respect them and honor them. And I say it's just a job. If they don't do their job, vote them out.
But does our generation know that we can vote them out? Do our generation know that we're their bosses? Do we know we're their bosses?
Our generation, I would go to say that my generation doesn't treat them like celebrities because most of us don't even know who they are.
Ooh. You absolutely right. I can probably go to 5 black people, my peers right now, and ask them who their local city council person. They probably couldn't even tell.
They probably tell you who the mayor is.
Okay.
Outside of that.
All right.
Well, he answers the phone when you
But
call
for
the
the
city of
ones-
Los Angeles. He's the answer machine. I think that's
Tony,
interesting.
you've been around. We treat them like celebrities.
I think we treat. I think sometimes some of us do. We treat. We pay homage to elected officials. We pay homage to pastors. We pay homage to a whole lot of people that we look up to. It's not just politicians. I think that sometimes we just get carried away with that. And I think.
But they are our employees, aren't they?
Brother was right. What the hell? The preacher's your employee too. You pay him too. But you end up, if he got a parking space and celebrate his anniversary and his wife's birthday and cuss yours out on her birthday. The question is,
do we do that enough to our politicians? That's the question.
I think we do. Yes, I think we do it to some of them, and I think we. I don't think it's monolithic. I don't think we do all of them the same way.
All right, very good. Derek, how and why do you think? I mean, we talked about it a little bit before the commercial about our generation not getting as civically engaged like we once were back in the 60s in the civil rights movement. What happened? What do you think happened?
The Black agenda stopped being about the youth,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Okay.
When King, one part of the speech that sticks out to me is when he was talking about black children and white children, and of different um, cultures being able to come together.
Okay.
One of the big things you remember about the Black Panther Party was their breakfast program that was centered around the kids. A lot of the things we were trying to do during that time was making the world a better place for the future.
Okay.
And somewhere along a line, you could blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. It started being about the individuals.
Okay.
And about what are we doing for ourselves now.
Okay. Now, Shirley, historically, we started off as Republicans. We are the party. Originally, we were the party of Lincoln. And somewhere around the Civil Rights Movement or somewhere near the Civil Rights Movement, we changed our party in large numbers to the Democrats. But even still, as Black people, we were more civically engaged. What, in your opinion, do you think happened to our involvement in our activity or in large numbers, being civically engaged in our local politics?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I always revert to the movie Rosewood, where we really took care of our own. We were able to have our own economic growth.
Rosewood and the Tulsa project. Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and Black Wall Street. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think those are major traits. I think we have to also understand that era and that time. So the parties were so different back then. The values behind each party were so different.
So you did integration?
Whites were so different on both sides back then.
So do you think integration was the worst thing that happened to Black people?
No, I don't. But I think there's other part of it. We failed ourselves in that sense too. We've got away from who we are.
Okay.
So it is good to interact and integrate. Other cultures have done it, but they still have kept their culture. Okay. We still are like crabs in the barrel, and that's got to end.
Okay, Tony.
I think integration probably was one of the worst things that ever happened to us, and I think the fact that
you think it is one of the worst things?
Yes, no question
All right.
for me. And I think what happens is we lost our culture. Sister said it in terms of our culture. We as we integrated, we became more American than Black, and I think it was. W.B. Du Bois said he feared that if we continued down this path, that somehow we would connect closer to Europe than we do Africa.
Okay.
And I noticed that is the case with us. Again, and everybody else has a culture and a history that they gravitate to, unless you got a pedigree, and they're proud of their culture, their history, and their heritage. Except here in America, a lot of times we want to be more American than we want to be Black. And again, I would also challenge. You're easier to get a Jew to eat a ham sandwich than you get him to forget about Israel and his people. And whereas when we talk about Black people and Black culture, we always tell one another, and we tell our kids and whatnot. That was then. This is now. And I always argue through integration. I think we got what we wanted, but we lost what we had.
Okay, Shirley.
I just wanted to revert also. We have to think about Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and taking us from where we were to where they got us to.
Okay.
And that's so important. When we think about Americans, we talk about we need to go back to Black people or not be Americans. I look at us as a global economy now. I think America is now a global economy, and that's what America is struggling right now, trying to keep everything Americanized, and it's not happening because of the internet, because of social media, because of Twitter and Facebook and all these things that we're having accessibility to. Our people, as far as educational limitations, are no longer there as in that era.
Okay.
That era had a lot of that with Facebook and with your cell phone. A poor urban Black kid doesn't have to have a lot of wealth to be able to have access to the same knowledge as elite Ivy League.
You said they don't have to have the same knowledge?
No, they don't. They can still have the same knowledge. They can have the same access through cell phones and technology.
Okay.
So they're not limited as far as that. It's what they make of it. When you go to YouTube, you can look at tutorials and they can learn so much from it. So I think economically we are a global economy. We are African Americans now, and we need to embrace that, embrace the opportunity of wealth there.
But we also should know that there is a digital divide in the Black community. So not everyone has access to technology and the internet. So that is impacting our ability to be progressive.
It's becoming more affordable. I remember when they didn't
have
microwaves, but now Black people, everybody has microwaves. So
I can go to some Black communities and my phone will drop.
Yeah.
We all know the little pockets in the Black area where there is just not a sufficient amount of technology. But Derek, you want to say?
I also wanted to add to the point I started off with. Another part that came about. There were a lot of things that distracted us as a people that divided us as a people as well. The new Jim Crow, which
Mm-hmm.
was the drug trade, the drug
Okay.
war. I'm
Okay.
sorry, drugs hitting the streets in the first place. Our community ended up working and trying to deal with those problems. So the idea of being civically engaged and passing that down to your, generation to generation, there was a huge gap of information that stopped being passed down.
Okay.
You know
All
what I'm saying?
And Derek, you and I often talk about the black agenda and whether or not it exists. And I contend that it doesn't exist, and that in the 60s, all of us couldn't vote. Now, I'm not saying that individually as black people, there's not an agenda in our individual communities, but across the country, all black people, irrespective of socioeconomic status, could not vote. Do you know what I mean? So how can we hold President Obama accountable to a black agenda if it doesn't exist? So my question is there a black agenda? One, and if so, what is it? And if we don't have one, how do we develop it?
I would argue that there is a black agenda.
What's the black agenda?
I would argue that when you talk about housing, you talk about employment, you talk about education, that's a black agenda. And it's
That's a black agenda for a certain sector of people. What's the universal
what's the
black
white
agenda?
folks' universal
You got a
agenda?
house.
What's the white man's
Wait a
agenda?
second.
I think again we only want to pathologize
Gays want to
black
marry.
people.
Hispanics want to be legal. What do black people want?
Right.
What we want.
Most gay white men want to marry.
You don't
It's
want
not
a
an
job, you
issue
got a
for
job. You said you got
predominantly gay,
money.
but that has nothing to do with the rest of us.
Wait a second, but
If
you're
you
supposed to
suffering,
vote
I'm
on
suffering.
okay, I'm
Just
sorry,
because
go
I got
ahead.
a job, what does that mean?
Okay, so I'm sorry. What is
It's
the
only
black
a matter of
agenda?
time before
Okay,
it
so
affects
tell
me.
me.
Answer her question.
What is the black
You know what I
agenda?
mean?
Answer her question.
I just did.
Okay,
No, you didn't.
Shirley, what's the
He
black
did, though.
agenda?
There
Especially
is no
from
black
a-
agenda.
Okay.
Look, there is no black agenda because we're all Americans, and black people don't really have a platform where they're fighting for each other. Why? Because the urban communities are all ran by Democrats that don't provide an agenda for our people.
Well, if we all Americans, why don't white Americans come in and make it right for the poor black
in
Americans?
Atlanta, Detroit,
If we
and
all
Los
Americans.
Angeles, we see that those leaders have been in office so long that they're also disconnected from their people. They're in Washington
Strong
and they're not
Thurman,
coming
how
back
long was
down.
he in office?
So therefore, what is the problem?
died
The
in
problem
it,
is we
didn't he?
have no black agenda because the leaders that are black don't have an agenda themselves.
Okay, you talking about you leaders across the country?
Absolutely.
All the white
Urban
folks
for the
on
urban community.
on supervisors board.
There.
Lerzowski
This
and
is a
them.
man who's got
How
a
long
job
they
and
been? How
money.
long they been on? How long they been in
There.
office?
Mad.
That's
Do we have a black
Crazy.
agenda?
Where we going with
In your
this?
opinion,
Disconnected.
is there a black agenda?
There is a black agenda.
What's the black agenda?
And I would say that as far as the agenda that I'm working on is empowering the youth to pass down information that got lost.
But you say you're working on what is the black
right.
agenda?
So there's a huge chasm of information that didn't get passed on.
Okay.
Right. Black Republican, Black Democrat, Black Independent, doesn't matter what it is. From the youth that exists now and all the information that we have up here, there's a disconnect in the communication. So of course there's no movement happening right now because we aren't all on the same page.
You know,
like we used
I
to
don't know
be.
if I agree with
But-
that as far as
Wait, let him
social media.
respond. Let him respond.
Right. So I'm just saying, I think the movement right now should be focused on reconnecting the dots that were lost in the
Okay.
80s, right?
All right,
You know what I
very
mean?
good. And not only that, the historical factor, because when you sit here and say that the Jews will never let you forget the
The
Holocaust,
Holocaust,
but
no.
we're real clear not to want to talk about slavery.
Right.
And I often talk about a conversation a friend of mine had with 30-year-old college-educated black women who had never even heard of Roots or seen Alex Haley, which I think is a shame. Now, while I believe
Wow.
wealth is taught in the home, so do I believe, just like the Jews teach the Holocaust in the home, that we should be passing down intergenerationally what happened to us
And we
in
haven't been.
slavery,
I agree.
and
We
that it's
haven't
not
been
the
at all.
responsibility of the school system in totality. So, in terms of what you're saying about this disconnect,
Yeah, I feel like once we can reconnect those dots, then people when the youth actually see Roots, I have a feeling that there's going to be a whole movement that is ready to move on something.
What if
You
they
know what I
don't
mean?
want to see Roots? Then what are you gonna
It's
do?
not about if they want to, because it wasn't about it when I saw it.
Okay.
It wasn't about if I wanted to
how
see it or
come we
not.
can't make
I
it
was-
mandatory K through 12 that African history has to be a required course? That's part of a black agenda from an
Yeah.
educational standpoint. Tony, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that I think it should be taught at the home, in your home. I
Okay.
think it should be taught in your religious institutions. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the saddest parts is that the people who we want and depend to teach, they're ignorant. They don't have any knowledge
Right.
of
No,
the
you're
history.
right.
That's a good
and
point.
I think
Very good point.
you have to start with that.
We agreed
Uh,
on something. Isn't that
Oh,
amazing?
we agreed on a lot.
Okay, there we go.
I think that again. I think that also I think what we also have to remember that it's a painful history.
That's true.
And if your
Very
history
true.
and if you don't really have a full grasp of your history, if you don't know that you're the creator of math and science, if you don't know that you're the first doctors in the world, if you don't know that you're the first people to stand up and speak the first special truth to the world, then you'll forever play junior brother to somebody else. You'll have Michelangelo's cousin on the wall calling him Jesus. But if you don't know who you are, then you got a problem.
Shirley.
I agree. I also say this because I have 3 young sons, and they kind of keep me current and saying, but Mom, look at technology. Look where we're at. Look how far we've come, but let's look how we are advancing in our thought. There's so much that floods their mind. It's not a priority for them to learn their past history. And I agree with you. Someone has to instill a desire for them to want to learn roots and want to read about history and Black culture. But there are websites politically, for instance, this is a political show, like hiphoprepublican.com, Booker T Rising. That's a great site to go to. Also in non-political, bipartisan, like Operation Hope, that's out there, that's trying to teach us about the economy and jobs. These are important sites to learn where we are and where people are fiscally responsible in their lives. I think they're hurting so much financially and they're hurting so much not having a job that they're not worried about history. Wouldn't you say that, though?
No.
Okay, well, Shirley, you're an anomaly here in the studio because you are a Black Republican. So I want to spend a little time with you around that particular topic. Do the Black Republicans have a Black agenda?
Absolutely.
What's the Black Republicans' agenda for Black folks?
The Black Republicans' agenda right now is that we understand how our country is being ran and how we look at the current administration. Current administration is not putting the economy and jobs in the front forward. And the current administration wants to do a trickle-down factor from the middle class, and that middle class is on one leg, maybe 2 toenails. So with that in mind, under the Republican administration, we want to focus on jobs. We want people hiring people. We want limited government. We want the people to be empowered, and we want people to hold the communities more responsible. In saying that, I go back to what I said earlier. Urban communities are not ran by Republicans or Republicans' administration or Republicans' agenda. They're ran by their own agenda. They are their own rock stars for the last 20 to 40 years, from the assembly, from the state senators, from the congressmen, to the city council, to the water boards. All these people, especially in Black communities, if you were to line them up, they are all, like I said, ran by Democrats. And like the brother said earlier, if you were just to go up to any young person and say, who's your senator, who's your congressman, they don't know. Even in LA, they don't know. So the agenda is, first, know who runs your city. Okay, forget about Republican or Democrat. Know who runs your city and your community. Then once you do that, get on and hold them accountable. The 3 strikes you're outlaw is on the platform right now. And I have an issue with the fact that these judges are crooked. And if you sit back, and many of those committees that get together, and you were to study that these judges, no matter what party they are, continue to perpetrate and stand and hover over us and incarcerate us, we need to vote those judges out of office.
So Shirley, what I hear you saying, as a Black Republican who has a Black agenda, that the Black Republicans want jobs, they want housing. It sounds pretty much similar to what we want as Democrats and independents. So what would you say is the biggest misperceptions about Black Republicans if Black Republicans appear to want some of the same things that we want in our terms of our communities?
The perception is how you guys want to do it. You guys want to do it from the middle class to the trickle-down factor. That's the difference.
Okay.
The difference is that we want to empower the people. We want limited government. Okay, there's a fiscal responsibility that we want the people to understand and be engaged with. But when you have urban communities that are ran by governmental programs and expansion of government, especially in the state of California, people continue to want to tax. Look at all the propositions that want to, instead of handle the budget that they've been given, they want to expand their budget by asking you, by allowing them to have you be taxed more. So you guys like to tax more so that you can cover your bills. We like to say, here's your money, work what you got, make it happen. There you go.
All right,
Yeah.
Tony. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, to that point, I think some of the ideas that she's referring to, especially as far as taxes are concerned, they clearly don't work when you have people who are not engaged in overseeing what's being done, right?
Okay.
Who don't go to the city council meetings and find out what the budgets are and what's being paid for. When you have an oversight committee that actually is there, but people aren't really as engaged as they should be, and those people who are doing those different constructions or whatever are going over budget, and nobody's really paying attention.
Okay.
There's no dog in the doghouse.
So there's no watchdog. Tony, in terms of the independents, do they have a black agenda? If so, what is it?
I can't speak for the independents.
Okay. I mean,
I think we do have a black. I think black people. I'm talking about as a black person.
Okay.
I think we do have an agenda. Again, as I said, housing, education. There's a number of things. I think that it's unfair that we would necessarily, because I don't even know what the white agenda is, or the Italian agenda is, or the Jewish agenda is.
Do you care?
No, but I'm just saying.
But why should you?
But what I'm saying is that for some reason we always want to hold us to a different standard than we do anyone else. And again,
we need to hold ourselves to a standard. Period.
I think we are held to a standard. I agree. There's no fact.
What standard are we holding ourselves? When you see you were just talking today about hip hop and how it's stupid and
how are we
checking each other? Are we checking each other?
Yeah, yes, we do check. When we check,
we're doing crabs in a barrel, but are we checking each other?
I totally disagree that we're doing crabs and checking. Somebody's not crab in a barrel.
No, I'm not saying
and
that
I think
it
too
is.
often we repeat. I think we repeat absolute nonsense.
Okay.
It's like, for instance, let's take hip hop. Like I was saying, I can make a song tomorrow, calling you bitches and you hoes. I can say nigga all day long. I can, and that's wrong. But I cannot make a song tomorrow, and white folk will distribute that all over the country. Rescue me if I'm wrong.
It's wrong.
But I cannot make a song saying faggot, talking negative about homosexuals. I cannot make a song talking negative about Jews. I cannot make a song talking negative about white people. Yeah. So the standards is clearly different.
Okay.
And again, we don't distribute that foolishness.
Okay.
So don't charge the victim with the crime. It's just like Sister was saying, we give you money and you do what you need to do. I think it's really interesting how people can be born on third base and talk about they hit a triple. That's really interesting to me. When you come from way back here, if I'm on second base and you on third base, I'm as a white man, you on third base, I'm really ahead of you because I came from much further back than you.
But wouldn't you say that's part of a mindset of how you're thinking, though? Because if and I'm gonna say that to you. Let me tell you why. Because 100%. When I have my children, remember when my middle son was 8 years old, and they talked about minorities, because BET was on. He said, "Mom, what's a minority?"
I agree with you.
And I went, oh my God, I thought, did I fail as a black woman? What do you mean you don't know what a minority is? Right. And because I didn't instill that in him. I didn't not to instill the and
that was good.
Right.
I applaud you.
I wanted him to progress. I didn't want him to think that he was on third base.
I absolutely agree, sis.
I want him to progress. So tell me,
absolutely
how
agree.
do you take this generation like him and the one younger
talking to the mic,
him?
sweetie?
I would argue that we have, this is just the world according to Tony Wafford. I ain't got to be right. I just would argue that we need to set some standards. We had standards at one time. And again, this goes to me. It's just me.
It goes back. What's the agenda then?
It goes back to, I agree with the brother. Like I agree with you, brother, in terms of what drugs did to our community. 100%. But they don't give dope away. You got to buy it, man.
Yeah, I feel you.
My brother died, was a dope fiend.
Right.
He died. We came from the same house, man. He made bad choices, okay? Some of us make bad choices. But also, I would argue that there's a difference in terms of the support system for those who make bad choices.
Talking to the mic.
Black people use dope, go to jail and die. White folk use dope like Howard, what's his name, Downey Jr., and breaking somebody's house, getting the wrong bed. And he goes to a place in Malibu
and gets his career boost.
And he gets his career boost. Yeah. I mean, wasn't that Steve Garvey used to play with the Dodgers? Used to whoop his wife every wash day. Chris Brown does what kids do. He had a fight with his girlfriend. It was mutual combatants. Now, she fought back. She just didn't come out as well as he did. But she fought back. And they find a way to reconcile. And then they beat him down in the press like, oh, now all of a sudden they want to do a 60-minute special on her about battered women syndrome and Stockholm syndrome. Okay. So, again, that goes back to what I say. We always address our issues from a pathological standpoint, and Negroes sign on to that foolishness. And I'm so glad that your son asked you what's a minority, because I don't even know what that is. Okay, so majority of the people in the world are people of color.
So let me ask you, how many of you guys here? I got an independent, a Democrat, and I got a Republican and a Democrat. So is it and we all three have a quote unquote black agenda. Is it possible for us to unify and come up with a black agenda across party lines?
Absolutely.
I don't see why not.
Sure.
What does that look like?
Sure.
I think it looks great. Let me tell you why. Because when we think about parties as a whole, we need to be engaged in every aspect. I think I get player hated all the time from people who can't wait to see a Republican across from them and then come up with attack tactics. And my mindset is you have your viewpoint as well as I do. So when it comes to whoever the governor is, whoever the president becomes, we still need to be there. We need to be there.
Yeah, and I think it starts on the ground.
Richard, is there a black agenda? Why are you putting the table? Is there a black agenda?
I'm going to side with Tony.
Okay.
I think this focus on an agenda for black people is tantamount to us always feeling like we've got to do better than the white man.
Okay.
When in reality, the idiocy of racism is that no one chose their color. You make the most out of what you're born with. Right next door, we have a school for handicapped people. The blind people, when I try to lead them to the door, they tell me, I don't need your help. We just got to get off this thing about being black. That's what we are. Understand our roots and get past this agenda thing, because I'm like, Tony, what agenda do the Italians have?
But I think you have to
Can
find
you
a
clap
balance.
because you
between
spoke?
the
I
two,
need
though.
Richard. Thank you, Richard Carr, the voice of Richard Carr.
I'll do his clap track for
But
him.
I think that
But don't we
also
need to have a balance between the both, though? Because if we talk about not having a black agenda and then saying, well, look at the past and look at the future, you need to have a balance.
But I think what's most important, I think we forget, regardless whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, black, white, or brown, green, whatever, our call and charge, I think, as humans, is to speak for the most vulnerable amongst us. At the end of the day, God is going to judge us how we treated the most vulnerable amongst us. And I think that has nothing to do
Are we not the most vulnerable?
And that's what our agenda is.
That's a human
agenda's
thing.
in the hand of God.
That's a human thing.
Okay.
But in our communities, are we not the most vulnerable among us?
No question.
All right. So that's why I feel
Tony don't
like
look so vulnerable.
I feel like at that point,
Shirley don't look so vulnerable.
at that point, that's where I feel like an agenda is needed, because we need to. Yes, I do agree that we do need to focus on ourselves. As a group.
So is our agenda? Is our agenda cultural or is it generational?
It's generational.
What's the agenda?
Absolutely generational.
What's the agenda back east right now?
Absolutely generational.
What's the agenda back east right now? To save those that are vulnerable, correct?
Right.
Do we need to actually hold a summit to realize that unemployment
I'm
is
not saying that we need a summit
among
and
people
so-
of color?
but-
Do we need a summit?
Yeah, but
to know
we're talking about right now what
before
is number one on our
unemployment?
economy is economy on the platform. That's what's number one in this country. That's the number one problem in this country. People are jobless, they're homeless, welfare is growing in this country.
We own China. China owns us.
Yeah, we're the worst among us.
Barack didn't do that.
Hold on.
Okay, all right.
That is we are the worst among not only just economy. We're talking about health. Let's talk about health for a second. We are at the top of the list of the worst things, and at the bottom of the list of the
And
of
Tony,
the
you know
best
that you work
things.
for HIV and AIDS.
You know
You
what
just
I
told
mean?
me the other day that heterosexual black women are the highest
Wrong number of new infections in the country.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So
And yet we don't die, we multiply.
Absolutely. We're like roaches.
If we want to
Do
talk
we
about
really need an
minority
agenda?
issues versus
Yes, we
priority
need an
Can't we
issues,
just survive?
But
Nah.
if
Are we
we
not
want
on
to
an
talk
agenda?
about
We've been
the
surviving
minority
We've been
issues,
surviving.
Wait, are we not on an
the priority
agenda
issues in this agenda
rising up out of
is about-
slavery
Wait
and
a second.
antebellum South?
But we're
We're
wait
on
a
an
second.
agenda.
We've always persevered. They can duplicate our lips. They can take our booty. They can dance like us. Remember, the only little Asian girl we accepted was on Soul Train. But you cannot take our perseverance. You cannot take our perseverance.
Better
So
than
that's in
roaches.
us. Our
And
spirit. You cannot take black people's perseverance away from them.
But
therein
I feel,
lies our
but in that
agenda.
same
And
idea,
there lies our
if we can
agenda.
get if we get ours together, right, and we show how the least among us can come up and rise like we're supposed to, right, then we set the platform for how others can do the same, like we always have been. We're trendsetters. We always have been trendsetters.
All right,
It's
so
a
we're coming
generational
down
thing
to
and
the
a
last
cultural
minute. So I want you to, Derek, how can people find it? And tell us, how do you get past the hype? So when we're listening to these politicians and on Tuesday and we're listening to their platforms, how do we get past their hype and hold them accountable after November 6th?
Man, it's really up to the individual, but I say just get engaged and start listening. That's where it starts. I'm talking specifically to all you guys 23 to 35, all y'all the real 80s babies. Get your life together, listen to what's going on, be civically engaged, and vote.
And
please.
how can they find you at the Social Justice Learning Institute?
www.sjli-cp.org.
Thank you very much, my love.
Number
Shirley.
one, get control of your emotion. Put race aside. put the economy aside and think about your scenario. Understand where you are in this country right now. Think about the fact that you have a job or don't have a job. A family member who's homeless might be living with you. You might be in a barter system right now. You're sharing, you're carpooling. You realize that this administration is failing your livelihood. Your lifestyle has been disrupted. You can go to hiphoprepublican.tv, but most of all, as a writer for the Washington Times, Community Washington Times, there's an article that I wrote that basically talks about the president, and it just says, who would you hire from a job perspective? Is he doing his job? And I would tell you no, because number one priority on our list should be jobs, the economy, and growth. This current administration has failed us on so many points, and everybody wants to act like he's a cheerleader, he's a rock star, he's a movie star, and they want to continue to run on the fact that he's a black man, we got to support black people. But I'm sorry, think about yourself and vote consciously on things that will affect your financial future. My name is Shirley Husar, Husar. You can follow me on Twitter, and you can also follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's Husar. I am ready to rock with you. I am ready to debate with you. Follow me on Twitter, my brother and my sister.
Tony, how can people find you?
Moving forward, I think we need education,
Okay.
organization, mobilization, and confrontation. And then we need reconciliation.
All right.
Because I think those are the things that we need to move forward. And I believe that a people that cannot save itself is lost forever.
Look at you just did some rap just then. You was rapping.
And there's a difference between rap and hip hop. I just like to say that. Rap and hip hop, two different things. I want to say
my
that.
brother.
Okay?
Thank you so much for joining us here on the Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. I am your host, Starlett Quarles. We will be back next week. We're going to extend our month-long conversation one more week to talk about the results and where do we go from here. I'm signing off as my mama's child and my daddy's baby girl. Until next week.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Of the world. Stop all this violence, what's going on? Fussing and the fighting. Let us praise the Most High and live in love. Live in love, live in love. Africa awaits its creator. Let us educate the boys and girls. Oh, yeah. Stop all this violence, what's going on? The fussing and the fighting. And let us praise the Most High and live in love. Live in love, live in love. Africa awaits its creator. Let us educate the boys and girls.